us start this webinar with an opening prayer. Let us remember that we are in the holy presence of the Lord. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Almighty, loving God, we praise you and give you thanks, for you have continuously reminded us of your faithfulness and guidance. We humbly ask you to shower our speakers for today with your greatest wisdom and inspiration, so they may share with all their heart and soul the knowledge they have on their assigned topic. Please bless us also, the attendees, with open hearts and minds, that they may also absorb the invaluable information and put it into practice efficiently and effectively. Your infinite blessing would mean the success of this webinar. May we be the living witnesses of your love through the enactment of the knowledge that we will acquire today. We ask you in the name of Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. Okay, good morning to all our participants. Today is the first webinar in the second leg of our CAEP webinar series. Just to give you a few reminders, the evaluation form link will be pinned in the comment section during the Q&A portion. The link will automatically close at 2 o'clock in the afternoon today. And your e-certificate of attendance will be emailed to you on Friday, June 26th. Okay, and now to give us an overview of this webinar series, may I present to you the Catholic Educational Association of the Philippines Executive Director, Mr. Jose Alan Aureliano.
Thank you very much, Aya. Magandang umaga po sa inyong lahat. Kumusta po kayo? Mabuti naman at mabuti kayo. Kunyari, sumagot kayo. Welcome to the first webinar of the second leg of our CAP webinar series. As some of you know, because you joined the past webinars the last couple of weeks, and some of you already also watched the recording, the webinar series is actually SAYAP's service to its member schools to help you transition to the new normal in the midst of this very uncertain period in our world history. The series of webinars that we continue to offer is still part of the work of the CAP Task Force COVID-19 for Institutional Assessment and Response. This task force worked at exploring the various ways by which our schools can adjust to the new normal when the community quarantine is lifted in your respective areas by providing our members with a school continuity plan. In the first leg of the webinar series, we gave you the steps on sample school continuity planning and provided you an example of how a school has applied the same. We also gave you the principles and sample practices on how to review school fees. And we introduced to you the online enrollment portal that SAYAP member schools can use to facilitate ease in enrollment during this time when physical distancing limits on-site enrollments. To ensure that you are updated on the various government issuances and laws in relation to COVID-19 that has implications on schools, we gave you a session on legal matters relating to this pandemic last Tuesday. In the first session for the first leg of webinars, we helped your school assess and manage the risks brought about by COVID-19 in your schools. This second leg in our webinar series will feature 4 webinars. We hope to help you ensure a safe and secure environment in your schools during this pandemic. Of utmost importance, too, is helping you design powerful instructional materials during this time when blended learning is necessary. We also want to help you decide on which learning management system is the best fit for your schools, given your different contexts. We also have a special session on leadership and governance designed primarily for school heads, administrators, and board of trustees. As Catholic schools, how do we make decisions based on the example of the Good Shepherd? How do we shepherd the people in our respective communities during this time of anxiety and great fear? It is our fervent hope that the sessions we carefully design will be very helpful for our Catholic schools. Let us make it a habit to visit the CAP Facebook page every Tuesday morning from 10 to 12 noon from June 23 to July 14 as we roll out exciting webinars for you. Please don't forget to share these webinars to your friends and colleagues who will benefit from them. Let me not keep you waiting. I'm sure you're excited to listen to our speaker for this morning. She is no less than the president of the University of the Immaculate Conception in Davao City. Currently, she is also the CAP Vice President. Let us all welcome Sister Marissa R. Viri, RVM.
Thank you, Alan, for the introduction. Good morning, everyone. This morning, I am tasked to share about safety and security in schools in the time of COVID-19. For my presentation, I have outlined the following. First is an introduction, followed by guiding principles, and identify areas of concern which schools have to line up or prepare strategies to prevent transmission of COVID-19. For the last three items, there is an item wherein we have to address concerns of our pupils and students when they go online, since many schools will be delivering instruction now online. There's also an item on cybersecurity for schools using video conferencing tools and online platforms. And lastly, what are the considerations that the school should look into when there is a need to close or open schools? And then I end up with a conclusion. Safety and security in schools are important because both affect an individual's well-being. Safety is freedom from physical or emotional harm, while security is freedom from the threat or fear of harm or danger, such as violence and injury. At their most extreme, threatens life itself. School safety and security protect the students and staff in a school from abuse or any other sort of violence. A safe learning environment ensures the overall development of a child. Children who are taught in a safe environment are less likely to engage in risky behavior. Because safety and security are essential, schools have appropriate measures in place. But with the outbreak of COVID-19 pandemic, it has drastically altered and tipped the balance of life worldwide. This phenomenon has significantly changed the dynamic flow of established human behavior and business operations in all forms. The COVID-19 crisis led to the enhanced community quarantine and finally to temporary school closure. Educational institutions are greatly affected with regard to the system of management, its processes and procedures, most especially in the mode of instructional delivery. After weeks of enhanced community quarantine and gradually moving towards modified community quarantine, business establishments, including schools, were allowed to operate, but with precautions. Schools, in particular, have to follow guidelines issued by the IATF, other government agencies such as the Department of Labor and Employment, Department of Trade and Industry, Commission on Higher Education, Department of Education, as well as local government units. As we craft our safety and security standards or protocols in our respective schools, we need to follow certain guiding principles as we assess our workplace. With COVID-19, addressing work-related risk, protecting health, and increasing safety at work has been a challenge. According to the Department of Labor and Employment, the DTI and Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, these are the guiding principles that we have to keep in mind. The more people a student or staff member interacts with, and the longer that interaction, the higher the risk of COVID-19 spread. The risk of COVID-19 spread increases in school settings as follows. The first level is the lowest risk. Students and teachers engage in virtual-only classes, activities, and events. Jobs or work tasks without frequent close contact with the general public and other co-workers, visitors, clients, or customers, and that do not require contact with people known to be or suspected of being infected with COVID-19. Workers in this category have minimal occupational contact with the public and other co-workers. Second level, more risk. Small, in-person classes, activities, and events. Groups of students stay together and with the same teacher throughout or across school days, and groups do not mix. Students remain at least 6 feet apart and do not share objects. Because of this, DepEd canceled face-to-face because of the risk that students will be encountering in case classes will be conducted on a face-to-face mode. Jobs or work tasks with close, frequent contact with the general public or other co-workers, visitors, clients, or customers, but do not require contact with people known to be or suspected of being infected with COVID-19. And the third level, which is the highest risk, is the full-sized in-person classes, activities, and events. And again, this is the reason why as early as March, classes, activities, and events have already been canceled. Students are not spaced apart, share classroom materials or supplies, and mix between classes and activities. Jobs or work tasks with high potential for close contact with people who are known or suspected of having COVID-19, as well as contact with objects and surfaces possibly contaminated with the virus. Taking in consideration these three levels, I would like to recommend or suggest to the schools certain areas where you have to formulate strategies in order to prevent transmission of COVID-19. Considering how COVID-19 is transmitted and the risk of being exposed, schools have to come up with guidelines addressing the following. Letter A, promoting behaviors that reduce spread and transmission of COVID-19. Schools have to implement strategies to encourage the cultivation of behaviors among students, faculty, and staff that reduce the spread of COVID-19. For the past 3 to 4 months, we have been practicing these 5: staying home when appropriate, hand hygiene and respiratory etiquette, wearing a face mask, adequate supplies to support hand washing behaviors, and signs and messages to remind us, particularly of physical distancing. Letter B, promoting physical and mental health resilience. Schools advocate implementation of strategies to address physical and mental health resilience through its health and guidance programs and services. Since schools are used to implement health and guidance programs on-site or on campus, with a change in the delivery mode, schools have to redesign policies, procedures, strategies, and redefine job descriptions. With the current educational landscape brought about by the pandemic, life must go on, but should not be business as usual, particularly in the delivery of services to the students who are in their respective homes. And this is the very reason why we also conducted a webinar on the school's continuity planning. As required by DepEd, schools have to craft workable health and guidance programs adapted to the mode of delivery that will be implemented. Letter C, maintaining healthy environment. The schools implement the following based on the DOLE, DTI, and CDS strategies to maintain healthy environments for students, faculty, and staff. There is a need for us to continuously clean and disinfect surfaces, transport vehicles, and others. We discourage sharing of objects or items that are difficult to clean or disinfect, ensure proper ventilation of rooms, and increase circulation of outdoor air. But we should not open windows and doors if doing so poses a safety or health risk. Minimize risk of waterborne diseases. This is pertinent to the water system by ensuring that all water systems and features, such as faucets, are safe to use after a prolonged facility shutdown. We need to implement space, sitting, or desk at least 6 feet apart when feasible. Turn desk tables to face in the same direction, even in offices. Provide physical barriers and guides to maintain physical distancing, and close communal use shared spaces such as lounge, dining halls, and other spaces where people congregate. Letter D, maintaining healthy operations. The schools implement the following strategies to maintain healthy operations. Protections for staff and children at higher risk for severe illness from COVID-19. We ensure that those who have symptoms do not report for work. We need to be aware of regulatory policies, regulatory awareness, both in the national, local level. We need to pursue virtual group events and limit any non-essential visitors. We need to identify small groups and keep them together if and when this is necessary. In our workplace, we can implement a staggered scheduling. In every school, there should be a designated COVID-19 point of contact, probably the school nurse. There should be a communication systems so that in the event that there is a suspicion of a personnel having symptoms, this can be easily communicated. The school should also be clear with regards to their leave policies and excuse absences. And there should be backup staffing plan so that in case personnel would be on quarantine in case the personnel is a suspected carrier of COVID-19. Somebody has to take his or her place. There is also a need to train our staff, not only on how to avoid being contaminated by COVID-19, but also we need to train our staff on the various tasks that they have to do in case they serve as backup. We have to also be able to recognize signs and symptoms. And one practice that we can do is that on a daily basis, when our personnel reports for work, we ask them to fill up the health records. And we need to support our personnel to be able to cope and be resilient with the effect of COVID-19. Letter E, preparing for where someone gets sick with COVID-19. The school should be able to have put in place strategies to be able to easily advise the staff and families of sick, both students and personnel, of home isolation criteria. Whenever there is a suspected personnel or staff to be contaminated with COVID-19, the school should be able to isolate and transport that particular person and make sure that the staff and families known to have contact with that particular person be advised as well. Areas where a particular person suspected to be contaminated with COVID-19 should be cleaned and disinfected. And lastly, the school should notify health officials and do contact tracing. Second is that although our students are not on campus, we have to ensure their online safety. Due to school temporary closure and stay-at-home orders resulting from the COVID-19 pandemic, and with the online learning delivery mode, children's increased online presence may put them at greater risk of child exploitation. Parents, guardians, caregivers, and teachers can take the following measures to help protect children from becoming victims of online child predators. Number 1, discuss internet safety and develop an online safety plan with children before they engage in online activity. Schools need to establish clear guidelines, teach children to spot red flags, and encourage children to have open communication with the parents, guardians, or teachers. Supervise young children's use of the internet, including periodically checking their profiles and posts. Keep electronic devices in open, common areas of the home and consider setting time limits for their use. Third, review games, applications, and social media sites before they are downloaded or used by children. Pay particular attention to applications and sites that feature end-to-end encryption, direct messaging, video chats, file uploads, and user anonymity, which are frequently relied upon by online child predators. Fourth, adjust privacy settings and use parental controls for online games, applications, social media sites, and electronic devices. Fifth, tell children to avoid sharing personal information, photos, and videos online in public forums or with people they do not know in real life. Explain to children that images posted online will be permanently on the internet. 6. Teach children about body safety and boundaries, including the importance of saying no to inappropriate requests both in the physical world and the virtual world. 7. Be alert to potential signs of abuse, including changes in children's use of electronic devices, attempts to conceal online activity, withdrawn behavior, angry outbursts, anxiety, and depression, and immediately report suspected online enticement or sexual exploitation of a child. Letter G is cybersecurity for schools using video conferencing tools and online platforms. The basis for this is the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency. I use this as a reference. Due to COVID-19, schools will be implementing distance education. Advances in information technology, as the increased availability of video conferencing software and video conferencing capabilities incorporated into other products have rapidly made distance learning more feasible. However, schools must balance the convenience, usability, speed, and stability of these platforms with increasing risk to both school IT networks and individual users. The following advisory guidance is intended to support the incorporation of cybersecurity considerations when adapting or expanding the use of video conferencing software and related collaboration tools. The guidance also includes recommendations for other school staff using these tools to host and attend meetings, and for faculty to conduct classes online. Information that is particularly critical as schools increasingly broadcast sensitive discussions over these platforms. Number 1, assess your organizational needs and determine the appropriate product to use for your institution. Also consider the need for your institution to collaborate with outside entities. Examine supply chain concerns, such as vendor reputation, data center locations, and whether the service under consideration addresses your institution's other security, legal, and privacy requirements. Establish an organizational distance learning and/or virtual meeting policy, or recirculate the policies if they already exist. Ensure that your organization's remote work and distance learning policies or guides address requirements for physical and information security. Ensure updated guidance is continuously available. Develop easy-to-understand summaries of policies applicable to distance learning and/or virtual meetings that are easily digestible by end users, such as teachers, students, and parents. Limit and minimize the number of collaboration tools authorized for use by the organization to reduce the attack surface and the overall amount of vulnerabilities. Develop a list of approved collaboration and video conferencing tools for your organization. Review and update security settings continuously. When an outside entity initiates a meeting using a collaboration tool not on an approved product list, instruct users to join web-based sessions that do not require installation of client software. Prevent system administrators from using collaboration tools on the system while logged on with administrative privileges. Administrators should not perform non-privileged operations on the systems they are administering, such as using email, browsing the internet, performing office automation tasks, engaging in recreational use. Prohibit the use of collaboration tools and features that allow remote access and remote administration. While not the main purpose of collaboration tools, some vendors may advertise remote access software as collaboration tools, and some collaboration tools may allow remote access and remote administration. If I may cite an example, the Team Viewer is one software that can be classified under this. Clearly articulate to employees the legal, privacy, and document retention implications of your organization's collaboration tools, including any data sharing or utilization of participation or attention tracking features. The Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency identified best practices for end users. These best practices are provided as recommendations to better secure use of video conferencing tools. Number 1, use only organization-approved software and tools for school-related work, including school-provided or approved distance learning and collaboration tools to host or initiate scheduled meetings. Consider sensitivity of data before exposing it to video conference and collaboration platforms. When sharing a screen, ensure only information that needs to be shared is visible. When joining meetings initiated by third parties that use collaboration tools not approved by your school, do not attempt to install software. Join web-based session instead. Do not use school email addresses to sign up for unauthorized free tools. Ensure that your visual and audio surroundings are secure and do not reveal any unwanted information. We sometimes experience this. I personally have already instructed our teachers who are holding classes from their home to ensure that their surroundings are secure and clear. Mute, or disable virtual assistants and home security cameras to avoid inadvertently recording sensitive information. Do not have sensitive discussions with potential eavesdroppers in your space or in a public area. Consider using headphones. An example that I can cite for this is when we conduct online meetings with our faculty, we have advised them that their children should be away from them when they participate online meetings. Check and update your home network. Change default settings and use complex passwords for your broadband router and Wi-Fi network and only share this information with people you trust. And number 7, tailor security precautions to be appropriate for the intended audience and content of a meeting. Do not make meetings public unless they are intended to be open to anybody. For meetings that will be broadly attended, ensure you have the capability to mute all attendees and limit the ability of attendees to share screens. Consider giving participants an option to participate by audio only if they have privacy concerns. When conducting meetings with a large audience, have a pre-established plan. For private meetings and lessons, require a meeting password and use features such as a waiting room to control the admittance of guests. For enhanced security, use randomly generated meeting codes and strong passwords and do not reuse them. Do not share a link to a meeting on an unrestricted, publicly available, or social media post. We are now conducting our classes and we have instructed our students who are officially enrolled not to share the link to students who are not officially enrolled. Provide the link to the meeting directly to specific people and share passwords in a separate email. If possible, require unique participant credentials, monitor meeting members as they join, and lock an event once all desired members have joined. Use features to permit removal of any meeting guests during the course of the meeting. The host may consider staying in the meeting room until all participants have signed off. Manage screen sharing, recording, and file sharing options. Limit who can share their screen to avoid any unwanted or unexpected images. Consider saving locally versus to the cloud base on the specific circumstances. Change default file names when saving recordings. Make sure to consult with your organization council about laws applicable to recording video conferences and sharing materials through them. Set participants' expectation on session recording, and screenshots. If logging into a collaboration tool via a web browser, be careful to accurately type the domain name of the website. Verify that meeting links sent via email are valid. Do not share student credentials or links with strangers who may use them to disrupt classes or steal information. And lastly, carefully review meeting invitations sent for sessions. Check to see if the meeting originated from a known teacher or other school employee. Verify that the address has the school's name in the URL. Lastly, what considerations should be taken into when deciding to close or reopen schools? First, current understanding about COVID-19 transmission and severity in children. Local situation and epidemiology of COVID-19, where the schools are located. Third, school setting and ability to maintain COVID-19 prevention and control measures. Additional factors to consider in deciding how or when to particularly close or reopen schools include assessing what harm might occur due to school closure, such as the risk of non-return to schools of students, widening disparity in educational attainment, and domestic violence aggravated by economic uncertainties, and the need to maintain schools at least partially open for children whose caregivers are key workers for the country. The different areas I have cited are the probable areas wherein the school can already craft or line up strategies so that, as I have mentioned, transmission of COVID-19 could be prevented, and that as our students go online, they can be protected. To end my sharing, the situation created by the COVID-19 pandemic is evolving by the hour. Every school is struggling with what decisions are the right ones to make. And in many instances, we may not know what is right until we have the benefit of hindsight. Even then, we may not know. With that in mind, the right decision is one that considers public health guidance, the law, your school's mission and culture, and your community's safety. What is right for one school may not be right for another. Please keep this in mind as you review feedback about what other schools are doing. Now, to give a sharing of the safety and security protocols in their school, may I call on Dr. Teresita Arcos-Surot, the Directress of Holy Family School of Quezon City, who is also an active member of the CAP, National Basic Education Commission.
Thank you so much, Sister Marissa, and good morning, everyone. My presentation revolves on our institution's response to the evolving challenges of COVID-19 pandemic from the time the government announced that there was already an outbreak in our country, during the height of the ECQ, and as we transition to the GCQ. Next slide, please. So our guiding principles are grounded on our philosophy, mission, vision, goals, objectives, and the core values, which is communicated through our school effectiveness framework. And these are all non-negotiable. Of course, we are also guided by the issuances and mandates from the government, particularly DOH, Department DepEd, and DOLE. And these are all ever evolving. What is true today may not be true later, and what we announced just this morning can be changed in the afternoon. And of course, the CAP advisory. Next, please. Next slide, please. Next slide. Next slide, please. So, at the onset of the pandemic, when there was already a case in the country, please, next slide. Next slide. Next slide, please. Oh. Okay. So at the onset of the pandemic, when there was already an announcement in January 31 that there's already a case in the Philippines, we immediately created policies, and we made sure that the school is adherent to all the advisories of DOH. And then as early as February 11, we issued an advisory through health advisory, which we posted on our official Facebook page and given to the parents, because at the time there were still classes. So we were able to communicate that the specific measures that the school is undergoing to ensure the safety and health of our students. So from we already have communicated that coming to school if you're sick is is a big no-no. So we were very strict with that. And for parents whose family went abroad, especially for the countries that had the outbreak, we really required them to undergo a 14-day quarantine. At times, there are some challenges. For instance, there was one family who would insist on reporting to school, allowing the daughter to report to school because it was already near the periodical exam. But we had to be firm because we have to consider also the health risks that would happen to our other students. So we just have to present to them our basis for that. And usually, some challenges take place only when the stakeholders do not understand yet. So we really have to be patient in communicating and be firm in the policies that we impose, especially if these are guided by mandate from the government. Next slide, please. Next slide. Next slide, please. Next slide. All right. So now, during the height of the school lockdown, we have a very unique sharing because Holy Family School offered a free dorm service for the frontliners because during the ECQ, we know the plight that was experienced by the frontliners. They had a lot of problems when it comes to transportation. So our school is surrounded by government hospitals, including Philippine Heart Center, Lung Center of the Philippines, East Avenue Medical Center, ano ba ba? National Kidney Institute, and there are other hospitals. Even we accommodated frontliners from the City Health Office. So we were able to accommodate 110. We, as I mentioned earlier, our guiding principles, one of our guiding principles is the vision, mission, and goals of the school. We, as a congregation, it is the charism of the Sherpas de San Jose sisters to make sure that the plight of the workers are well taken care of. So at this time of the pandemic, even if we do not really have dorms, we have nothing except our classroom, we pool resources together. We ask the help of the president of the Alumni Association to mobilize the alumni. Special mention to Miss Mary Ann Cruz. And of course, the president of the Parents Council, Mr. Greg Galang. And then we also sought help from the government. We really do not know how to start, but we know that there would be good people who would help us because we have had a good intention. So we even reached the office of the vice president. As you can see on the picture, that's Vice President Lenny Robredo, who visited the school and provided us a lot of resources, a lot of help, so that we would be able to sustain from March 31 until May 29. We were able to accommodate 110 frontliners. So, of course, the safety and the safety precautions would be different. So it's almost every day there's disinfection, decontamination, but we made sure that no school personnel except few janitors would report to school. But then before they had to undergo swab test before the opening of before we opened for work. Before June 1, we had to undergo swab test. We have to make sure that they are safe and they can report for work together with the other school personnel. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Next slide. Next slide. So, fast forward June 1, when we had when the ECQ was lifted, and it was open. The school was already open to accommodate school personnel. So from June 8th, may I mention that our teachers, our school personnel who were on lockdown from March 16 until May 31, they received salary in full. And then we would have, they work from home. We would have wanted to continue working from home by the opening of June 1, but we, of course, after doing some zonal screening of their capacity for internet connectivity, because we would have wanted to prepare for the online learning, the data show to us that more than 70% of them do not have strong connectivity. So with our goal to make sure that our teachers would be ready, because our goal was for them to come up with lessons exemplar, create lessons for online, and then to prepare summative tests for all the different subjects. Of course, we consider equity here, which is one of the mandate by the Department of Education. We understand that when the online classes start, skill subjects like MAPE, TLE, and formation subject like CLF would not have to conduct summative assessment. Most of that will have our formative assessment. But for the content subjects like science, math, English, Filipino, and Araling Panlipunan, we promise the parents that we will make sure that the students would still master the skills that they need, so that they will get good scores in the achievement test. So we already anticipate how would it be during the actual classes. Content subject would be busy preparing for lessons for synchronous and asynchronous, at the same time preparing for the summative test. Whereas the skill subjects would be preparing for the synchronous lessons. So we thought of making sure that there should be balance. So we asked them to report on a skeleton force. But of course, aside from making sure that we are safe and healthy, we wanted to make sure that we are also safe from potential litigation, potential retaliation. In creating the skeleton workforce, we need to make sure that those whom we would ask to report really have capacity for the special tasks that we would. So going back to what I had just mentioned earlier, it would be very difficult. We would be the one to identify who among them will will form part of the skeleton workforce. So we assigned their cluster coordinator. Of course, we first asked our teachers to prepare letter of intent that they would want to be part of that skeleton workforce, and then to identify which of those areas they would want to be part of for the promotion, preparation of the lesson exemplars or the summative test. And then from there, it will be the cluster coordinators who would decide later on who would be among them, will continue until the opening resumption of work, normal work, which will be on July 13. We have to explain to our employees that we are declaring gap months because we do not have revenues right now. We would have wanted to provide them, all of them, the salary for the entire months that we don't have classes, but we rely on the tuition fee revenues. So we have to explain that to them. So of course, at times there are some questions because, and we have to understand, we have to exercise utmost patience and understanding because at this time, the private sectors are the most affected. We see posts on Facebook about the benefits that the public school teachers get. Aside from they get full salary, they have chalk allowance and everything. Of course, we would have wanted to give that also, but as I mentioned, we have to rely on our resources. So, next slide, please. Next slide. So, since we always make sure that all our decisions are guided by circular letters, by mandates from the government, we have to communicate to our teachers, to all our employees. So we communicated to them that their health is our utmost priority. We tell them why is it that, what was our basis, because they also have different resources. Of course, each of our employees, parents, students, would have to make use of, would refer to different resources as basis for their claims. But from our end, when we decided on creating skeleton workforce where all teachers were allowed to report for school, for work, we made sure that we communicated to them which area, which specific provision in the labor advisory number 17 do we refer to. And I would like to read that. It's labor advisory number 17, series of 2020 says that alternative work schemes as an alternative to termination of employment or closure of business, any or a combination of the following may be adopted. We quoted number 6, which says, other feasible work arrangement considering specific peculiarities of different business requirements. So we made use of this because we wanted to assure our parents that we will still offer quality instruction. When we employed our teachers, they had undergone screening procedure through face-to-face teaching. But this is the first time that we will be going online. We wanted to make sure that we would be able to provide them support. What kind of, do they need upskilling, reskilling, cross-skilling? So it's only through the exemplars and the other tasks that we are asking them to participate, would we be able to make sure that we would be able to deliver to the parents what we have committed to them, which is quality instruction to our students. So explaining, it takes time to explain to employees, but we just have, as I mentioned, we just have to exercise utmost patience, and we have to understand them because, and we have to be honest that when they tell us that iba yung sinabi mo kahapon, iba na naman ngayon, paiba-iba, gulong-gulo na kami. So we should always be honest to tell them that even us, we are also confused. and that they have to have that mindset that in transitioning to the new normal, there will really be a lot of confusions. But what is important is that as a family, we try to collaborate as much as we can so that we will be able to deliver the services that we have promised to our stakeholders, especially our students. Next slide, please. Next slide. All right. So, of course, there were some questions like, why is it that the city hall, there's a city hall or city ordinance that says these are the things that have to undergone? Because we have to use our own context. Upon entering the school campus, we made sure that we provided foot bath. We have this thermal gun, and they have to. Can you please proceed to the next slide? Please proceed to the next slide. Okay, next po, next. All right. So we also wanted to communicate to our parents that although we already accommodated, because at first we were very strong in saying that all transactions should be online. But then there were some parents who would tell us that they have difficulty doing online enrollment. So we had to accommodate those requests. That's why we made sure that the areas are really ready for in accepting parents. So we staggered the enrollment of the students, and we made sure that the janitors are there to assist to clean every, I think every 30 minutes. So I actually have a video presentation of that, but it's quite heavy, so I settled for the pictures. Next slide, please. Wala na. Nakikita ba ako sa slide? Pero hindi ko nakikita dito. How is that? Dito ko na lang tingnan. All right. Next slide, please. Okay. So, we made sure that we have posted signages, announcement. Aside from the form that the teacher, the school personnel would have to fill out as they enter this one actually, as I said, we continue to evolve every day depending on the needs and the challenges that we face. So starting this morning, we already have the form that is initially we did not think of requiring the employees anymore, because they have expressed agreement already that they would not come to school unless they feel that they are ready physically, emotionally, and mentally for the work. Because others might feel that there are serious threats when they have to report to school and go home. In fact, we also offer free dorm services for our teachers. We tell them that for our employees, we tell them that we were able to accommodate 110 frontliners who were outsiders. We are sure that we can also accommodate those who have difficulty in commuting from their home to school. Next slide. So we also provided signages on the floors to ensure we are actually ready, even if there will be face-to-face classes. If, for example, the government would announce that there will be face-to-face instruction already, the school is ready. We have prepared the classroom to accommodate only 20 students, because our classroom is quite big, 20 students per classroom, and we provided signages to make sure that we will observe physical distancing measures. Next slide. Next slide. So the next series of pictures are just was that this. We will just want to show to you that we are ready. We abide by all the DOH advisories, DOLE advisories, and even DepEd. Please proceed. Please, next slide. Next slide, please. All right. So once a week, we have this disinfection and decontamination. But every day, we tell the employees that they will take charge within the day in the disinfecting their areas. We provide them alcohol because we do not want our janitors to be moving from one room to another. We want to lessen the contact. So the disinfection and the contamination takes place every week, but the disinfection of all the workplaces that we use is done every morning. So we tell the school employees that the cleaning should have been done by 7 o'clock. If you arrive earlier than 7, please do not enter yet. You will be held at the guard area. You will only enter after 7 o'clock. But if the janitors come earlier than 7, then they can enter the class, their workstation. So these are the things that we tell our employees so that if there are some challenges about the school not taking care of the employees, then at least we have all the proofs to tell them. Okay, next slide, please. All right, so all the comfort rooms, all the sinks are with dishwashing liquid and alcohol provided by the school. The labor advisory number 18, I just read lately that it also requires employers to provide including face masks. So we started yesterday that there are face masks available, but for those school personnel who think that they can provide for themselves, then we just thank them for saving some for the school, considering that we still have a few enrollees. But we, of course, commended our teachers who expressed the intention to report, to be part of the skeleton workforce, because from the time we started posting on our Facebook promotion, telling our parents that we are ready, the enrollment increased by 240%. So we are very thankful to the collaboration of our teachers, because we would always tell them that they are the most critical persons. They are the most important persons in the school. Without the teachers, even if the administrators are there and the other personnel are there, we will not be able to proceed with the online instruction. So we really thank them for their collaboration. Next slide, please. All right. So we also provide, but this one, the teachers ask our school bus driver, because the school bus drivers do not have what's this, something to do now, no? They do not have occupation right now because we don't have students transporting from their home to the school. So we made use of the school bus for our employees. And then for some, we told them that for those of for other employees who would still want to avail of school bus, we can always contact the president of the bus service association so that they can be provided service. But we would always tell them that the school is open for them if they would want to stay. There are actually some employees of we actually have some employees who, some of them would arrive in the evening of Sunday and would go home in the afternoon of Friday. So just to make sure that they are safe. Next slide, please. All right. So this is the faculty and staff dormitory. So they observe proper hygiene. They make sure that they do not they leave their footwear outside. Isa lang we only have one picture here, but we make sure we actually followed the protocols, dorm protocols that we use during the ECQ, the one we got from the Office of the Vice President. Next slide, please. All right. So I think most of the succeeding slides have already been mentioned by Sister Marissa Viri extensively. So I would just like to proceed to the cyber safety measures. Please forward to the cyber safety measures. All right. Ensuring children's online safety. Now, this one is still a work in progress. 2 weeks ago, I had a meeting with the officers of the Parents Council and another Zoom meeting with the officers, the student officers. And I asked them to help us in crafting the student handbook because we believe, admittedly, we adults have less exposure on the online as much as the students have. So we are still working on that, but at least we already have started. By the time that we start online classes, we are sure that we would be very much ready by then. So, next slide, please. Next slide. All right. So I think most of those that I mentioned here that you can find on the slides have already been mentioned extensively by Sister Marissa Viri. So I do not want any more to discuss on them, no? So can we proceed to the last slide? So this ends my sharing. What I have just shared with you is a unique experience of Holy Family School of Quezon City. We are a small school. We have less than 100 employees. So collaboration is actually easier because we at times we aside from the memo that we issue, at times we just make use of the Viber, or we can just visit their workstations if there are some confusions for clarification. So what is important is that we assure them that the school abides by all the advisories from the relevant government agencies, and that we are ready to accommodate their concerns. We will try our best to improve as they give them feedback. And we do this even to our parents and most especially to our students. Our office is always open to accommodate their concerns and requests. Thank you so much, everyone, and good morning.
we are back. Apologies for the broadcast interruption earlier. Now we are now here at the Q&A portion. I still have here with me Sister Marissa and Doc Tessa to answer the questions that posted in the comment section below. I would also like to inform everyone that the materials presented today will be uploaded in the CAAP official website. That's www.caap.org.ph. And you may also watch the video in our YouTube CAAP channel or just simply visiting our Facebook page. Okay, so the evaluation form link, I believe it's already been pinned in the comment section below, and it will be available until 2 p.m. today. Okay, so thank you again, Sister Marissa and Doc Tessa. I just want to highlight this commendation from Miss Gilda Villador. She stated earlier, thank you. Guidelines provided are very essential and important. So thank you so much, Paul. And I think, so let's start with the questions that has been raised here in the comments. So first question, Paul, is from Miss Fayoli. I think this is for Sister Marissa. So her question, Paul, is, can the guidelines presented by Sister Marissa be used in our school?
Definitely. I can share the document, no, not only the PowerPoint, so that schools may be able to benefit from what I have shared.
Thank you, Sister. Yes, again, Paul, it's going to be uploaded after this webinar in our CAAP official website as well. Okay. Again, for Miss Fayoli, this time it's for Doc Tessa. She has a question regarding the summative tests po. What she mentioned, kailangan po ba ang summative ay for major subjects only?
There will actually be summative tests for all because all subjects will be graded. What I was saying about summative tests for content subjects would be standardized tests because DepEd tells us that the test should be aligned to the online learning. We cannot give the same test that we give face-to-face for the online learning. But then we wanted to make sure that our students are ready for the achievement test. We just wanted to make sure that this year that we do online learning delivery, they would not miss the important lessons, essential lessons. That's why we give summative tests which are standardized. But for the other subjects, there will have summative tests, but most of them are to be done synchronously. So we clarified to our skill subject teachers that as much as possible, they will not be adding the loads of the students in accomplishing subject tasks given by the content subjects. So it's more on virtual summative assessment for the contents, for the skill subjects. Okay.
All right. Thank you. Noted po yan, Doc Tessa. And I think Ms. Fayoli, that answers your question po. But also been reading some of the comments from the comment section. And this one is from Ms. Laliol. She says, wow, may pa-dorm pa ang faculty and staff for the Holy Family. So yes po. So the next, going back to the question po, posted here, there is a question here from Mr. Ariola. He said, how can CAAP help our private school teachers to lobby for the social amelioration program of the government? So, just want to ask
Sister Marissa. Sister Marissa.
I think Father Elmer is with us. I request Father Elmer to answer.
We will consider po yung request ninyo. Actually, yung CAP NCR already wrote to Senator Gatchalian requesting the good senator to lobby for the non-teaching personnel of NCR schools, to be included in the amelioration program of the government. We will consider that request and we will write the appropriate bodies in order to lobby for you po. That much we can request and we can do. Whether they will grant it is another question. Pero we will take note of that. Salamat po.
Thank you, Father Elmer. Surprise guest po si Father Elmer for today. But yes po, I also just want to add, CAAP has been engaging with the government through COCOPEA and on its own po, providing the Congress and the educational agencies with feedback on the concerns of the private schools. And we have also been a resource person po in Congress, as we've been sending important data from our member schools for the Senate and the House to help the private sector. So those become the basis of the bill drafted by the Congress. But right now, because unfortunately, the government's priority is the terror bill rather than the clear system of for the private schools. So I hope that answers your question, Paul, Mr. Ariola. Okay, and thank you again, Paul, Father Elmer. Okay, next question po. I think this is for Sister Marissa po. So from Miss Kililan, you mentioned po that possible face-to-face learning, especially for those students whose parents are working. Do you have guidelines po ba na need to follow for the schools?
First and foremost, for face-to-face learning or face-to-face classes, residents in the school, we really have to follow the advice of the government. And if ever it happens and parents would allow their children, I think one of the things that we need to do, it's part of the different areas I have identified is, first is the number of students whom we will allow to go to school for face-to-face. Second is the physical setup of the school, the classroom. How many students can your classroom accommodate, considering that there should be at least a distance of 6 feet in terms of physical distancing. And then, of course, provision of, I have mentioned it, provisions of adequate supplies to support hand washing and other things that is needed. For example, soap, alcohol. It's really the responsibility of the school to provide, although we can also encourage our students to bring. And another area that we need to concern is the schedule of classes. If we don't allow students to go to school based on the number that we have before per section, if we divide the students into 2, then how shall we do the scheduling? So those are some things that we need to consider if and when there will be face-to-face classes, holding of face-to-face classes. Actually, it's part of the different the areas that you need to consider. I have identified it. So my advice is, when you make the strategies based on the different areas that I have identified, when you make the strategies, you consider both no face-to-face and also if and when face-to-face will be permissible. So that, as Dr. Tessa mentioned, when it happens, you are ready. And if it don't happen, because you also have strategies for no face-to-face, you are also ready.
Thank you, Sister. Yes po. If you have also watched the previous webinar po from Father Aurelia, he also emphasized the need for Plan B. Since we really, yes po, in case hindi po magdala yung face-to-face, we already have Plan B. Okay, thank you po, Sister. Also, may follow-up question rin po from Mr. Hementiza. If we can customize po yung guidelines presented by Sister.
Yes.
Of course, yes po, you can. Thank you. And I think what this question goes for Dr. Tessa from Ms. Lalio. How is the performance assessment done in subjects like MAPE and TLB?
As mentioned, it will have to be done synchronously. The teachers will have to assess how, because we do not want students to grapple with answering questions or going through tests in writing on subjects that are really skill-based. Di ba pag MAPE, physical, it really has to be physical. Yung music, pagkanta, ganon, parang we do not want our students to be burdened with cognitive tests for skill subjects. Mas practical din, no? The test should be practical.
Thank you, Dr. So there's also a question po for you naman po. This is from Ms. Borromeo. Thanks a lot for sharing your experiences in your school, Dr. Tessa. May I just ask if you can also share a sample of your lesson exemplars for elementary for benchmarking purposes po?
Yes, sure. Actually, some of our teachers are ready. The USB is already with us, and we will choose the best exemplars, and we would of course we will have to ask the permission of our teacher first. Then we would share that for sure. Thank you.
Thank you po. Also, next question po from Mr. Tayanes. More of a clarification po. Is there a need for schools to hire experts like doctors to make instructional modules, or can teachers, by doctors po, I think he meant po yung mga PhD po, to make instructional modules, or can teachers make the modules themselves? Hindi po ba ito pinagbabawal ng DepEd? Sister Marissa?
Okay. In terms of preparing the module or learning package, no, I believe if we have been conducting faculty development program, training, no, to our faculty, and if you have coordinators or the principal, no, the principal in your school will be able to guide them how to write modules and how to go about the design of the instruction, no? Considering that it's not the usual face-to-face, but let's say it's either online or offline, no? I don't see the need to hire experts. As I have said, no, if a school has its own pedagogy, you have following a particular pedagogy for your school, then you use that as the guide in writing the module, no? Also, there are many materials in the internet, and these are reliable materials where you will be able to learn how to design, no, instructional materials. So personally, I don't see the need to hire experts to guide the teachers. There are many models that you can use. It's just a matter of tapping your own people, no? Sometimes we overlook, no? We don't see the potential of our own teachers, but if we begin recognizing, no, what they have been doing in school, because I believe if a teacher has been teaching for at least a minimum of 3 years the same subject, he or she has already improved her learning plan for the past 3 years. You don't naman every year start anew, no? You always you just improve what you have been using the past years. So if you have been teaching the same subject for 3 at least or 5 years, then I believe you already have there the needed assessment, and then if you have performance tasks, you have already the rubrics. And if you have good subject area coordinators, they must have also already checked on your rubrics on the assessment, whether it's formative or summative assessment. I believe you already have materials. It's just a matter of gathering materials that you have in the school. Then you'll be able to come up with the learning package or module.
Thank you, sister. Anything to add po, Doc Tessa? If required po ba na it should be PhD for those people na, for creating modules?
I think perhaps for beginning school, but for schools that have been have been existing for at least 5 years, I believe that they would have developed already or created a core group. If I would share about our experience, we make sure that our middle administrators have strong pedagogical orientations for the ever-evolving needs, no? Kasi pa bago-bago, before we had the UBD, meron tayong kung ano-ano. So we really have to make sure that in all our professional development programs, we strengthen the pedagogical orientation of our teachers and our administrators. So I don't think there's a need. In fact, it will even be more difficult if we will hire external persons to make our curriculum. Okay, so like what Sister Marissa said, we have to trust our own teachers, our own employees. Kayang-kaya nila yon with our guidance.
Yes. Couldn't agree more po. And I think po, those who know them well are of course their admin po. You are able to identify who will create the modules, will be the best person to create that module po. All right. Thank you po. I hope that answers your question, Sir Susis again po. Sir Del Rosario. Oh, I have another question po. This one is very interesting. For the schools po, do we need to have a rapid testing if school starts po? Is it required for the faculty and staff?
We may I answer that. We just rely on the advisory of TOLE and DOH. And I haven't read that there's a requirement that there has to be rapid testing. What I know is that they have to declare that they are, because right now it's different when we just had the onset of the COVID-19, when they have to declare whether they have traveled the countries with outbreak of COVID-19. Ngayon hindi na eh. Parang baka ang tanong na, did you ride a tricycle? Pagka ganun na yung tanong eh. No? So, nag-evolve na kasi. So, ang hirap eh. In fact, even those who would say na ayaw nila talagang physical distancing, but in a way na i-expose, just the fact that there's one in the family with quarantine pass, di ba? Nung ECQ, that person who would go out for an errand, when that would go back to their house, would not expose the other members of the family. So I really do not know. I haven't read that actually. So as of now, kasi wala akong nabasa, hindi kami nagpapa-require ng rapid testing.
I think po, for me po, the most important is yung health form po. I think that one is a requirement wherein you need to, before you report to work, you have your health form, and that's going to be like on a weekly basis to ensure po na we're clear, and we can always do contact tracing in the event po. But yes, I guess po, it's really more on taking care of yourself, more on observing yourself if you can still go to work po. That's a personal opinion though po. Mm-hmm. All right, so moving on po, I think this one is for Dr. Tessa again, sorry po. What about TLE or HELE or other skill subjects po? What's the best way to assess our students' practical performance?
Again, it has to be through synchronous, or that's how I see it kasi, no? But for some schools or some students who do not have internet connectivity, then I guess there would be another way of doing that. Perhaps they would have to record, and then activities that they do, then save that on their USB, tapos ipapadala na isasubmit. What I'm trying to say here is that I don't really see the need for the skill subjects to give written exams, whether it's formative or summative. In the first place, these subjects are not given in the National Achievement Test. Di ba? Wala namang ganon. Wala din sa NCAI. Wala rin, when you take entrance exam in college, wala naman yun eh. But they are very necessary subjects. In fact, these are the subjects that balance, no? Yung the cognitive demands, the academic demands of the different subjects are being balanced by the skill subjects. So, yun lang ang I always emphasize that the skill subjects should focus more on evaluating or assessing the skills of the students and not yung, di ba, pa-memorize mo. I remember when I was an elementary student, we would memorize how to wash the plate. Di ba may ganon? Parang ano na yung una, parang I don't think that is needed. So at least ngayon wala naman ng ganun. Yun. So baka pwedeng test sa HELE, no? Ay hindi na pala HELE, TLE. Video na bata nagliligpit ng higaan, no? Kasi that's housekeeping, and I really don't know. The teachers can be very creative and they should be guided by MELC. Di ba meron namang MELC that was released by DepEd? Then they should be guided by that. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much po. Doc Tessa, this one po is a question from Mr. Kiton to Sister Marissa. Is curriculum learning plan still needed or just the lesson package or lesson logs po?
Curriculum learning plan, actually, Miss Tessa, it's the when you develop, for example, a unit, no, this is how we are doing it, the RVM. When we develop a unit, no, that's for one unit. At the end of that is, example, if you allot 20 days for that particular unit, there's the learning plan, no. So the learning plan is part of the unit that you have developed. In the unit, you identify what are the competencies that you wish to develop. But it's a unit, so you have to divide it into several lessons, and dun papasok yung learning plan. So in the design of our learning package, we do it by unit. No? That is for the RVM. We still follow the UBD. No? Nandun yung essential questions, mga ganon. No? And then at the end, we have there the learning plan for each day that the lesson will be conducted. In our system, our learning plan is daily. I do not know with Dr. Tessa, but for the RVM, our learning plan is daily. So learning plan is still part of the learning package that we are developing.
In our case, we have it weekly, but for the senior high school, we have the daily learning lab. But even in the weekly lesson plan, we make sure that the teachers would indicate there what are the lessons to be learned during day 1, day 2, and because particularly for English, we don't find it easy to have a daily lesson plan, daily lesson plan, because at times for English, for instance, and Filipino, there are a lot of skills that need to be learned. So you can have day 1, it will just be on vocabulary skills and comprehension skills, and then day 2, but that can be placed in one lesson plan, one weekly lesson plan. But of course, we design our own learning framework based on what we think is best for our students. So iba-iba talaga. Like what Sister Marissa said earlier, what is true to one school might be different for another school, no? So, yun po.
All right, thank you po, Dr. and Sister. Also po, I think this is our last, probably our last question po before we ask for both of your advice. For collecting employee or health records po, how can we do it? How do you usually do it po, like your practices in your schools po?
Okay. Um, uh, as they enter the campus, they have, for example, we were not able to show this earlier on screen. So we have this symptom screening prior to entry. So pagdating lang nakalagay na stop. Are you currently experiencing any respiratory problems when you or worsening ka? Parang may mga tanong. And then sa dulo nakalagay, if yes, then continue. If no, then please do so before entering. Tapos may tanong. And then on the page where they are supposed to write their name or their signature for coming, no, for their attendance for school, may nakalagay doon. My signature below signifies that I have undergone preliminary screening to show that I am physically, mentally, and emotionally fit to report for work. So yun, everyday may ganun. So kasi parang ang hirap naman na parang everyday nakalagay na ano. So parang it's a waste of paper. But this one, what is important is there's a declaration. Aside from the memo and circular letters that were already released to them that they are not, nobody forces them to report for work if they don't feel well. So, kailangan may mga dagdag para, as we said, to avoid, to be safe, to be safe also for litigation, and importante yun yung hindi tayo makakasuhan. Kasi ang hirap po na, di ba, naghahabol nga tayo ng enrollees to increase our revenues, tapos meron pang mga ganong So, we just have to inform our employees.
If I may add, Aya, with regards to the health form, the DTI, DOLE guidelines that they issued, that is the DTI and DOLE interim guidelines on workplace prevention and control of COVID-19, it is required that employees daily accomplish the form. So what we are doing, majority of our employees, non-teaching personnel who are reporting for work, we ferry them, as mentioned by Dr. Tessa a while ago, yung mga drivers natin, to be able to maximize their presence in the campus. We use our bus to ferry. We have 2 buses ferrying our personnel, one coming from the south and another one coming from the north. So the moment they step out of the bus, they proceed to the clinic, to fill up the form, and then for screening by our school nurse. And 2 cases of our personnel talagang may fever, so we have to send home the personnel because we don't allow them to go to their workplace without passing through the clinic and filling up that form. That's how we do it, and it's a daily routine. So we have to use scratch paper in printing the form. At the end of the last page of the DTI DOLE interim guidelines on workplace prevention and control of COVID-19, you will find the form there. I think it's in Filipino, so we have to translate it to English and also to Bisaya, because Bisaya, because of our maintenance personnel. We have to ensure that they really understood what's in the health form. But for us, it's a daily routine. They do it on a daily basis, filling up the health form.
Thank you so much po, sister. So we are now down to our last 15 minutes po. I think to conclude this webinar, may I just ask for both of your final messages po or advice regarding safety and security to all our member schools and also to all our participants who are currently watching po today. We can start with Sister Marissa po.
Okay. So concerning safety and security, as I have mentioned, at the start, majority, I would like to believe, all schools, you already have your own program prior COVID-19. So now that we are facing this pandemic, I'm sure also some schools already, after CAP had a webinar on school continuity planning, these are 2 areas, health and guidance, that schools should really be able to come up program that could be delivered offline and online, because our students, including our teachers and personnel, would really be in need of health services, health program. And for our guidance program, part of our program now, even if we deliver online, is that our guidance office came up with a program, homeroom program, and other activities that would also be delivered online. So they also have training on Google Classroom, no? And they will be uploading materials through Google Classroom. So health no, should always be our priority, whether it's physical or mental. No, regardless of how good we have developed our learning materials, if our students and our teachers are not conditioned physically and mentally, then learning would not happen. So safety and security is a priority, having still program related to health, physical and mental, in spite of COVID-19, in spite of the absence of our students in our campus. There is really a need for us to be able to continue serving them and providing them physical and mental health programs in any way that we can do. Thank you.
Sister Dr.
Okay. So just like all schools, like Sister Marissa, for Holy Family School, safety and health of all the stakeholders is our topmost priority. So we continue to assure the parents, the students, and the school personnel that we do everything to ensure that they are safe in coming to school, and that the school implements all the guidelines set by the relevant government agencies. At times we need to change some of the forms because like the one I saw yesterday, it still includes those items that were pre-COVID items. So we adapt, we customize for our own school. What is important is that there's the declaration that the teachers are coming to school, the teachers are ready to report for work, and that the guards make sure that there's a thermal gun. Hindi na sa clinic, doon pa lang sa entrance, there's a thermal gun to check their temperature. So there will still be problems, there will still be confusions, and what we can commit is that we will be ready to accommodate all concerns brought to our attention. We will be ready to improve our services if we find out that we are falling short in some areas. We rely on the strong collaboration of everyone. And as mentioned by Father Elmer earlier, that we have to have the heart of a shepherd in leading our schools. So thank you so much and good morning.
Thank you for the enlightening messages, Sister and Dr. And that concludes our first webinar. We would also like to thank PAC for their financial support. Again, the link will be available until 2:00 p.m. today. And also, please do continue to watch the 3 remaining webinars. That's going to be every Tuesday, same time, 10 a.m. until 12 noon. And the next webinar will happen on the 30th of June. It's called Heart of a Shepherd, Leadership and Governance in Schools in Time of COVID. The speaker for that webinar will be Bishop Rex Alarcon. And then the next webinar will be on the 7th of July. It's Teaching Today, Designing Powerful Instructional Modules for the New Normal. And their speaker will be Miss Debbie Grappel. And then the last webinar for the series will be on the 14th of July. It's Making the Right Choice, Choosing the Best Learning Management System for your school. And the speaker will be Professor Anna Cheryl M. Ramos. Again, that's it. Thank you so much for watching today's webinar. See you on Tuesday.